How's it going, everybody? Welcome to OP Entertainment. I'm Omar Darwish.
And I'm Pratik Cherian.
And this is our review. We're going to go spoiler-free on Black Adam. You know, it's been a while since we've gotten a shit on DC, Pratik, so why don't you go ahead and take the leads?
Those of you who watch the show know that I usually break out a graphic tee for our reviews. This movie was so bad, I'm not even going to pretend to do that.
Do you know how bad it was?
Super bad. There you go.
This
Very
was not
nice.
planned at all. I was actually anticipating liking this movie because from what I read about the reviews, it was like, okay, it seems like people are expecting Shakespeare with this. And I'm not expecting Shakespeare. I'm just expecting a fun time.
So have you seen those like memes going around like, oh, I made an AI watch like 24 hours of cop shows and this is the script it wrote? That's how they wrote this script.
It took him 15 years for some reason.
I made an AI watch every superhero movie in existence and this is what came out. Like there's shades of X-Men, shades of Black Panther, pieces of Iron Man, and the problem is this movie reminds you of those movies, but does everything worse.
It does everything. You're right. I wouldn't say, because I thought you were gonna say it does everything wrong. It just does everything worse. It doesn't do it better. It doesn't do it even on the same level.
There's not a single original idea in this movie. Not only that, I can't remember the last time I went to a movie that had so many jokes in it and I had zero laughs.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Not one. Not a single laugh, a snicker, a smile. I don't think smiled.
There was like one thing maybe Adam Smasher said that I was like, huh. I think that was genuinely, like, the audience didn't react to anything.
Yeah, we were in a fairly full theater.
Yeah.
I don't remember, like, there were a handful of, like, maybe, like, 2 or 3 lines that got a reaction of sorts.
But not even, like...
There wasn't a moment where, like, the entire theater was laughing, like, and I'm not even including myself in that, like, entire theater thing.
You could say... It's not a comedy. Okay. Then I would say, well, the characters were shit. You'd be like, well, it's not a character study. And you could say, well, the action wasn't all there. When you say, well, it's not an action movie, then I would say, what the hell is this movie? What the hell is this movie supposed to be?
Can I talk about the action super quickly? So,
this is my way of being the positive one, is just kind of letting you go.
Have you ever played a video game where, like, you're just kind of, like, grinding to level up XP, and so you just kind of do, like, the same repetitive, like, combat over and over again? That's kind of the way the action of this movie felt, where it was
especially the people.
Yeah.
You're ever playing a video game and there's people just like NPCs saying random things?
Yes!
So
yeah.
He's on my side. He's on the left. I'm going to shoot him. You shoot him. Boss said to get on the left. I'm like, what is this dialogue? What's happening right now?
There were so many points where I'm like, I feel like they ripped this straight out of, like, Injustice, where it's like character A says intimidating line, character B says intimidating line back. They like rush towards each other and action sequence.
It's like an old Spider-Man game and you're beating up the thugs and they're talking shit to Spider-Man while you're beating him up. Like, oh, I got the web head. And it's like, what is this? Like, what am I listening to right now?
That's what this movie, that is the dialogue.
Okay, but like middle of the, or I guess beginning of the second act, I started thinking to myself, you know what? First act was a little slow, but it's picking up a little bit. Like, I liked Black Adam's fight sequences enough, although it seemed like The Rock said, hey, we're going to listen to the fans. We're going to bring back the stuff they like. Everybody loves Zack Snyder. Everybody loves slow motion. This movie, you could cut an hour out of it if you just sped up the slow motion. Like, we said that about the Snyder Cut.
Yeah.
Dude, what in the hell? This was like 300 on crack. Every person had a slow motion walking or something, or anytime a bullet would fly. Yes, we get it. I think it's because, like, in slow motion, we're trained to, like, be okay with bad CGI because we know it's like a slow motion. So they were like, oh yeah, let's just make everything slow motion. There you go. That's a big nitpick right there. Every human character in this movie sucks. The actors, I'm sorry. What were you doing? Did you get one take? Because that's what it felt like. You got one take, and it was like, all right, we got to go.
While we're talking about the acting,
sure.
And you know my rule is usually never to hate on child actors. It felt like the actors and the writers were having a competition on who could do worse. The writers were like, we're going to give him the cringiest dialogue. And he goes, I bet I can deliver it cringier than you intended.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, nah, I can make it worse.
His first line, I leaned over to you and I'm like, is that the worst piece of dialogue you've ever heard in a movie?
And that's another gripe I have with this movie. There seems to be this underlying message, and we'll get into it a little bit because the movie doesn't care enough to dive into it, so I'm not going to dive into it that much. But there seems to be this underlying message about, like, peace in the Middle East, kind of. I guess I'll leave it at that.
Sure.
But who's the good guy and bad guy? Because it seems like this movie didn't want to choose. And it seemed like that's the point of the movie is there's gray lines, but, like, at the same time, what?
Here's the thing. You are putting more thought into it than the movie ever did.
I started getting angry with it, and I was like, you know what? Who cares? Because this movie is, like, it's dumb. It's not terrible. I thought to myself this when I was driving home. I was like, listen, if you put all of cinema in a box and 100 years, listen, hear me out. And 100 years from now, you opened it up and you're like, oh, superhero movies, what's this? And you grab Black Adam as like one of the first couple. I think there's a lot of fun you could have with it, right? Because there's some cool stuff in there. But like you said, we've seen everything before done way better. And that's just, I liked the Justice Society. And it got me thinking like, man, I wish DC could like get a Justice League going because this is okay. I like their banter. I like, and it almost kind of reminded me of the Justice League. Like Adam Smasher's always eating, like the Flash is always eating. You know, Flash, everyone's favorite character.
Oh my God.
That's
when he's not punching people, he's eating. You're right.
Speaking of Adam Smasher, though, other than his stupid CGI mask that I thought made no sense, I get it maybe in the comics or whatever, but like in the context of this movie,
that still doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense. I liked him. I thought he was fun. Noah Centineo or something like that.
Sure.
It's one of the only names I know of any of the people in this movie. Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Fate was really good.
He was good.
He was good. They made him different enough from Doctor Strange, I felt, where it was like...
I mean, character-wise, yes. Visual effects-wise, absolutely not.
You're right, you're right. There's a lot of mirror dimension type things going on and like multiplying himself, and this is all the
yeah,
so it's not spoiler.
Again, it's oh, hey, there's this thing in Infinity War. Let's just do that.
But you know what? Like, him... And I guess just the Justice side, like, what's his name?
Aldous Hodge.
Hodge. I'm almost going to say Calvin and Hobbes. Aldous Hodge was great. He was great in Invisible Man. He's great in this. I want to see more of Hawkman for sure. I didn't know Hawkman's powers were, like, essentially I didn't know he had the super strength, I guess. I thought he was kind of more just like a
guy with wings.
Yeah, a guy with wings. I don't know how comic book accurate that is. How comic book accurate was this movie, Pratik?
They changed a lot of the origins. I mean... It wasn't egregious. Like it wasn't where I was just like, oh, that's terrible. Like I was offended as a fan of movies, not
a fan of comics.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I guess if you're like a diehard Black Adam comic book fan, was there enough in there that even though the movie's bad, you'd enjoy it? Because why should anybody see this movie?
I think that part of the appeal, and I'm not like giant Black Adam fan, but I think for people that are, generally what draws you to the character is just the complexity of like his villainy, but he has like this noble undertone to him.
Okay.
Many people, especially after the Jeff Johns run, has compared Black Adam to like Namor the Submariner, which I know is not a super helpful comparison, but like again, these characters that are leaders of their nation, they have this sense of nobility, but also can be on like both sides of right and wrong. And so it's like that complex character is usually what draws people to Black Adam. I don't know that you're actually going to get any of that in this movie.
The place this takes place in, it's called
Kahndaq.
That's from the comics.
Yeah.
He's the leader of Kahndaq in the comics?
Because
to me, it felt like he was like, "Oh, I've seen Black Panther. I like how he has a Wakanda. I want one of those." That's what it felt like to me.
Especially the way that they introduced it. And the beginning of the movie, it's like, hey, we're going to introduce like two MacGuffins at once. And then...
And that goes back to I like that The Rock is trying to like build up what seems like these are supposed to be Middle Eastern people, like Arabic people. But at the same time, like, they're not really painting them in the best light. So I don't... And there's a lot of lines in this movie that are like, it's okay to use dark, bad ways, bad brute force, if the outcome is okay. And it's like, that sounds kind of like terrorism. And, like, I get what the movie's trying to say, but also, does the movie...
Is the movie trying to say... Are we sure the movie's trying to say it? Yeah.
It's like, it was like such a backhanded, like, compliment almost. I was like, oh, nice. Yeah. Oh, okay, gotcha. But hey, if The Rock's trying to speak up for people who are underheard, I applaud the attempt, I guess. Speaking of attempts, what's this movie attempting to do or be? Just a launching point for this character? Because I think I would have preferred this movie as a 10-minute short before the next Shazam. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much in this movie that you could have just gotten rid of completely. It does, and like, if you want to just start talking about like stuff that doesn't make sense, I mean, this is in the trailer. The Rock is gone for 5,000 years, or Black Adam, sorry. He's gone for 5,000 years. First of all, swear I thought they said his name was Ted Adams, and I was like, it's Ted Adam.
Yeah.
I was like, Ted Adams, perfect. That makes sense. But The Rock's gone for like 5,000 years. He comes back, and he's speaking a completely different language in the beginning of the movie. He comes back and he's speaking English. He's pretty much The Rock, but a little stupider, it seems like. That really bugged me, and I get it. Speak English in all those different places.
I saw that done better in Thor.
Yeah, there you go. But at least like in Thor, everyone's already speaking English from day
Right,
one.
yeah.
They're speaking a different language. If you're gonna go that route, then what? It doesn't make sense. He wakes up and just knows this English language that's around and like seems to know catchphrases. Like the word catchphrase seems to know. Like,
Bit modern for someone. Yeah.
yeah, it just didn't really make sense. Like he picks up on sarcasm. I don't know. I don't know if they were trying to do like fish out of water funny stuff with him, and then they were like, nah, we want to keep this serious. I don't know.
I don't know.
The Rock was fine in in the character of Black Adam.
It's definitely like a bottom 3 role that I've seen him in. Like,
Really?
I mean, he was
Tooth
fine.
Fairy.
He was fine, but just think about like the charisma that he usually brings to like any of his roles. Like even in bad movies,
And-
you usually come away from it being like, I'd like to hang out with that character.
That's why I
at
feel
least.
almost like this movie just didn't need to happen, or I guess it needed to happen. Like we needed this build up so that The Rock could be in the point he is now, where if he shows up in something else and he's cracking jokes, it makes a little bit more sense.
Right, yeah.
But like, yeah, just do like a 10-minute short. This didn't need to be a full movie. And it's like, I said this already, but you've had 15 years to develop this. This is the best you can come up with?
I mean, it's one where if this movie had actually come out 15 years ago, maybe we judge it differently.
Did
Because,
they not
like,
change the script since then?
I guess not. No, they did, because every time they saw a movie that they liked, they're like, oh, let's add some of that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of. It felt like Black Adam's scenes were like slowed down versions of the Quicksilver scene that's
Yeah.
already slowed down, and it's like we've seen this before, and like you said, done way better. And it's like, man, why would you attempt to paint God if you don't have the paintbrush? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't get. I don't
Or
get-
paint.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. I just do we want to just give this movie a 0? I don't want to shit on DC this much.
Okay, all right,
This
all
is
right.
enough for the year. We don't have any more DC projects.
So usually I like mull over my score like as I'm leaving.
Right,
theater.
you had this ready.
I scored it in the middle of the movie because I was just like, yeah, I'm done. Like I know what this is. Okay, can you find one good thing to say about this movie? Because that was my struggle through like the back third.
My good thing to say about this movie is that between this and Venom Let There Be Carnage, where we heard the movie is shit, but there's like a cool post-credit scene, I didn't find myself waiting for the end of the movie to get to the post-credit scene, but I did find myself waiting a lot because the pacing of this movie is all over the place. Yeah, I can't. I don't know. I'm talking to myself in circles. I can't find anything good to say about this movie.
Okay. My one good thing to say about this movie is
The Justice Society was good.
okay.
Yeah.
That's decent. I was gonna say some of the scenes of him just like flying or in action in the air. Some of them like
When they're in regular motion.
when they're in regular motion looked nice.
Yeah, and some of the
yeah.
fights between the
There
Justice Society and
there
Black
were a
Adam.
handful of moments where I'm just like, there was like 1 or 2 split seconds where I'm just like, oh, this feels like I'm seeing the comic book up on screen. Like
Okay.
it was very, very, very fleeting, very brief. And again, I was trying to look for good things. So take that with a grain of salt. But
Yeah, like I want to say there's stuff to like about this movie, but I don't know.
I'm not the person to tell you
Yeah.
what they are because I didn't find any.
Am I gonna give this the same score as you? All right, ready?
Yeah, sure.
I'm thinking. I don't know that I'll ever watch this again. Like, you would have to like be a huge Dwayne The Rock Johnson fan and like pay me a lot of money to see this again. I don't know if I'm interested in a sequel. I don't know if I'm interested in like seeing any of these characters move on other than maybe Hawkman, Cyclone, like the Justice Society.
Yeah.
Like if The Rock said, this was my one and done Black Adam, I think I'd be okay with it. And
Sure.
that's sad considering like the build up to this movie. So I'm not going to give it a 0. I'm not going to give it a 1. I'm thinking 2.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll give it a 1. I was sitting there going like, all right, if you had a gun to my head and it was this movie and like Batman and Robin and you told me to pick a movie to watch, I'm picking Batman and Robin
Yeah.
every single time, and that's not a good movie.
It wasn't egregiously boring, but it was boring.
It was
and like
boring.
that's
was
the one
boring.
thing I needed this movie not to be was boring. I said that going in. I was
Yeah.
like, as long as it's not boring, I think I'll have fun with it. And
No, it just wasn't fun at all. All right. I've said my piece. It's a 1 for me. It's one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
You could talk me a couple notches down. You could probably talk. Yeah, you can't talk me higher. I don't think about it.
All right, you want to take us out?
Yeah, guys, we'll see you next week. We've got other movies coming out.
There's other movies.
Yeah, we'll see you guys.
Thank God.